Hello lovely people, it's Nicola back in the Stitches and Slapdashery sewing room. I've missed you! It's only been a few days since Philanthropic February and I've been itching to get back and start recording more stuff. I did a lot on the Sunday after the daily videos finished, and I've got to show you that. And since then I've been doing a lot of manic slow stitching because it's so addictive, and I'm going to show you that and what I'm going to be doing with it now that the embroidery part is finished. Do you like my new mug? A friend of mine showed up at the door the other day with a mug for me. Now, we have a lot of mugs in our cupboard. A lot. But this is rather lovely. It has my initial on it. And so I accepted it gratefully. And then yesterday, I took some time to clear out the cupboard, which holds all our tea, coffee, mugs, glasses, travel cups, all that sort of thing. And my 2 Christmas mugs that say all I want for Christmas is you, and the one that says let it snow with a snowman on, they're going to the thrift shop. I think they originally came from the thrift shop anyway. Well, the first 2 did. The third one I may have bought on the sale for cheap at the supermarket. But they're going. I really needed to prioritize, and I wanted to keep this one plus some others of my favorites. You just can't keep everything, can you? Sometimes it's good to have limited space. This is my limited space, my sewing room here, and it's a decent size. I mean, it was a bedroom before. So as long as all of my craft supplies fit in this room, it's all good. If I start to overflow out of the room, however, that's when trouble's going to start. So let me start showing you what I have made in the last few days, or finished. If you were with me for Philanthropic February, which was my month of creating for others, giving to others, donating to others, then you will have seen me make this. Well, I didn't make it, I painted it. I guess I can't claim to have made it because the toadstool birdhouse came from Michael's. In fact, when my friend Annette saw this with the little bird that I made on social media, she couldn't help but come into Michael's and buy her own birdhouse so that she could paint one too. I did not make a clay bird, I crocheted one, and I did a quick search on Ravelry, and there's lots of little patterns for different kinds of birds, but I wanted one that was going to fit in that hole in the birdhouse, and luckily I found one which is very, very cute. I made it in the blue and the pink because I wanted it to coordinate with my birdhouse. The little yellow beak and feet and safety eyes for the eyes, because those always just finish things off perfectly, don't they? And then when I had finished it, I popped it in there like that, and it was just the perfect fit. It was just made for it. Literally, it was made for it. So that was really, really fun. And now that it's been sitting in here a few days waiting for me to show it to you, I can take it up and put it on my dining room table. My big vase of faux flowers here, which were all spring flowers from last year's Michael's clearance, they've gone up to the dining room table now because they're really beautiful and they really brighten up the dining room. And so this is going to go on the dining room table as well, along with something else that I have finished. Again, you might have seen me making these paper butterflies, and I used wire from an old calendar, and then I did a clay base. Well, now I have painted the clay base. Now, I'm not convinced that the little toadstools are going to stay put if I tip this, so I'm going to be really careful because as I was painting them, a couple of the caps did dislodge a little bit, and I tried to glue them back on, but I'm not sure if it worked. So here is my base. I hope you can see that. There are 3 little toadstools in there with a pinky red top and a few little white spots. And then I did a little bit of light brown for the stems, so it was kind of messy in there, and then I blended it out to a darker brown, and then a brown, green brown, greenish brown, and then all the way out to this sludgy brown here. And I had to have it tipped slightly so that the base could dry. Even now, this has been at least a week drying, I think, and I wouldn't swear to it being completely dry on the bottom, even though I've let the air circulate. So you have to allow for that when you're making clay. It's not an instant project. But yeah, that also is going to go on my dining room table or my coffee table so that I can enjoy it. Makes me smile. I know it's really basic and all that, and not very well made, but I like it. Another thing I did, I found the rock. I had lost track of the rock. It was in the bag that I went to the park with the other day, and I just threw a coat of white paint on it and a bunch of springy colours. I just thought that was cute. And I thought, if I'm going to put some things like fun rocks or anything spring-like on my dining room table, I might want a bowl to put them in. So what did I do? I made a bowl. Now this was something that I think one of my friends sent me the idea for it. No, I think it was Lindsay at It's a Lovely Day for. Oh, the exciting news about her. She has now got a YouTube channel. She had a lot of followers on Instagram, and then she went and opened up a YouTube channel, and her first post there, her first video, had so many views. I think she's going to be doing well on YouTube. She's got a mixed media channel, and I'm pretty sure it was her who was making a fabric bowl like you would if you were making a papier or paper mache bowl. I made one too. I used a mixing bowl from my kitchen as a mold and covered it with plastic wrap. Then I used just an unbleached cotton in strips and pieces, just glued and school glue, just to stick it down, cover the plastic wrap. Then I covered that with scraps and let it dry overnight. Now, it wasn't completely dry when I took it off the mold. It did have some dampness around the edges, but I was impatient. If you know me at all, you'll know I'm an impatient sort. So that was the first layer. That was the first layer of colourful scraps that went on there. Again, looking for spring colours, so pinks and greens and blues, things like that. And then once I took it off the bowl and I peeled off the plastic wrap, I did the inside. So I layered up scraps of fabric, put glue down, put the fabric down, covered that with glue, and layered that, working from the bottom up to the sides. Didn't worry too much about how messy the edges were. And then I let that dry. And so when that was completely dry, I was able to just use some scissors just to cut off the messy edge. I wondered about using strips of fabric to lay all the way around to finish it off, and then I decided I liked the unfinished look and I was going to leave it like that. Pretty hard. It's quite strong too. There's not much bend in that. It still smells of sweaty feet. I guess that Elmer's school glue has a bit of a smell about it when it's dry. So it definitely smells of sweaty feet. I'm sure that'll go away. It's less than it was the other day. So yes, that is also going to be on my dining room table. Yes, I have a large dining room table and it's just as well, isn't it? So that was rather exciting to get all of those things finished, because I do love a finished object. I had one bit of fun mail this week. I ordered some stuff from that company named after a South American river. Sorry. I needed a couple of things, and this thing had been in my cart for ages and ages and ages, and I decided I was just going to bite the bullet and buy this. It wasn't an impulse buy. It's something I've been thinking of getting for a really long time. It's a felting needle. Haven't even taken it out of its packet yet. It has 7 sharp needles in it. Now, because I don't use wool, I've never considered felting as something that I would be doing. But not long ago, I saw Tori of Cool Cookie Creatures using a felting needle like this. She might have been using a single needle or a multi-needle, I can't remember. But she was just felting organza or ribbons into organza, or organza onto something else. I can't remember what it was. And I thought, okay, I can use anything with these felting needles and sort of smush them together. And I wanted to try that. So I have bought this felting needle. It's not a brand name one. It's just a generic Chinese one. But hopefully it'll work fine. I don't have one of those bristle mats or anything to felt onto, so I'm going to have to figure out what to use as a layer underneath whatever I am sticking the needles in, so that I don't damage whatever I'm working on. I'll get to that at some point. And now for the large project, or the longer term project, which I have been working on for probably at least a week. I started this, I think last week, and I laid a whole bunch of pink and green fabric scraps onto some synthetic batting and pinned it all down, basted it with some thread, and then did a whole bunch of embroidery. I used embroidery floss, mostly DMC, because that's what I've got, in pinks, greens, and purples. And for the first set of running stitches, I actually blended 3 different coloured strands to use to do the first running stitches across. And then I forgot about it for the rest of the project, and I was just using solids, and I was kind of kicking myself for not doing more blending because it was rather pretty. So once I had put all the scraps down, I added some pink circles and some leaf shape pieces, and then the embroidery began. So I'm going to have to insert a separate piece of footage showing you the close-up of all this. It's looking a little crazy. So while I'm talking about it and looking at it, I'll probably insert the footage here. So I have flowers with French knots, and we used to call them lazy daisy stitches. I don't know if they still do. I've got a lot of French knots in my pink flowers and spiky stitches. Some of the patterns in the scraps have been outlined with embroidery thread. There's some blanket stitch around the leaves. There are some leaf shapes embroidered on in a running stitch or in a back stitch. Random little bits of blanket stitch and extra little bits where I just wanted to hold down the edge of a fraying piece of fabric. A little bit of feather stitch, I think it's called. Some little X's in places, some little stars in places. A spiral. Little triangles. Yeah, it's a lot. So that was really, really enjoyable. I had a lot of fun with that, and it's a very sturdy fabric now because it is so well stitched. What I do have to do is I need to iron it again, not because I particularly want to flatten it out, but there are some places where the friction pen I used is showing still, because I obviously didn't use enough heat on it before to get rid of the lines. And there were a couple of places where I noticed there was a slight lightness in the fabric where the friction pen had been. So this is another reminder. These heat erasable pens are great, but probably not the best for something where it's going to be right on the front of your work, because they can leave a faint line or they can come back with cold. So you got to be careful of that. So my next stage, I'm going to trim the edges. Once I've pressed it and got rid of all the blue lines, I'm going to trim the edges so that they look lovely and neat. This was 12.5 inches square to start with. I suspect it might have shrunk a bit with all of the stitching. And then I'm going to cut a lining out of this beautiful fabric. And then I will put them right sides together, sew around, leaving a turning gap, turn it out, hand sew it shut. I'm going to not do any machine sewing to put this together. It's going to be completely handmade. I'm going to hand sew the gap shut. I will then fold it into an envelope shape, hand sew those seams together. And then I just need to add some sort of wrap. And I have these 3 faux suede cords, which I thought I might braid together and somehow attach to the corner of the envelope, the top flap of the envelope, to wrap it closed. Probably need to dig around in the button stash to get a nice button that will coordinate with everything. And you know what? Because I am a slow stitcher now, what did I think of when I saw these today? I was like, oh, when these are empty, they'll make fantastic spools for a slow stitched scroll. How awesome. And then I could decorate this. I could cover this with something pretty so that it's not just white plastic. But yeah, that's what, 2 inches? Probably 2 inches tall. And it would make a great scroll holder. That's a project for another day. Just before I started to talk to you, I went over to my whiteboard and I wiped it completely clean of all the philanthropic February stuff, because I was keeping track of what I was doing every day. And I have written down the things I still want to do, which includes the weaving on the forked stick, the pastel mushrooms on sticks for putting in a plant pot. And yeah, I can't read it from here because I don't have my glasses on. But yes, there's 5 more things that are on my to-do list. And the beauty of a dry erase board is that as soon as I do them, I can rub it off and just add 3 more things when I've come up with some more ideas. Amazing. So I have to check the time and see whether I have time to make some progress on this morning. I do have a shift this afternoon. I was conscientious and already set up dinner in the oven and got most of the things I needed to do ready for work before I came down here. So once I know what the time is, once I switch off the phone, I'll know whether I can actually start ironing, cutting and trimming. So yeah, I hope you're going to come along with me as I finish my little slow stitched pouch. Just trying to get rid of the last of the friction pen lines here. I don't want to leave the iron on the fabric for too long because the synthetic batting underneath is, well, polyester. I don't want it to get too hot. This little Dritz iron has been a boon. I'm really enjoying it. I was a late convert to mini irons, but I really enjoy this one. It's worked perfectly. It's great for small jobs. And of course, in conjunction with this ironing pad that I made, it's nice to not have to deal with a wobbly ironing board and a heavy iron. This fabric is gorgeous. It's one of the ones I've picked up from Fabricland in the last year or two, where I just bought something because it was pretty, it was on clearance, and I knew I could use it for a bag lining or something. And the nice thing about this also is that it's not necessarily a one-way print. Because of the nature of this construction, I don't want something which is a one-way print because it will look funny once I've made this pouch. And you're going to need about a 12-inch square, so I'm not going to open the whole thing up and iron the whole thing out. It always looks so much nicer once you've trimmed off the messy edges. So I ended up losing 1/4 of an inch, which is barely anything, once I had trimmed the messy bits back. Look at the back of that. Crazy, isn't it? But so pretty because of all the colours. And then I have cut my lining to 12 1/4 inches as well. I think I still have time to do the next step, which will be pinning them together. Even though I definitely put a lot of embroidery into this, I want to be absolutely sure that there are no bits sticking up when I do the seam, because that would be annoying. In fact, I probably should be pinning it from the other side. I'm going to make sure that my pins are sticking out off the edge because I'm going to be sewing it from the other side, because this is the stretchier side. Just to make sure it doesn't stretch out, I'll do it from the batting side. Ouch! Stabbed myself. You know me. I always stab myself at least once in any sewing project. Oh, I don't know how we manage it sometimes. I could clip it as well, but today it's pins. What I'll do is I'll go grab the other one that I made of this in the same method, but larger. I can show you that. I'll just throw these pins in, and then you'll see what I'm up to. Oh, I forgot to tell you. I was talking about Lindsay and her new YouTube channel. Well, her Instagram handle is It's a Lovely Day For, but her new YouTube channel is Lindsay Dixon Creative. Lindsay Dixon Creative, I think. I'll be sure to link it underneath the video. I'll also link the pattern for the little bird. It's a really simple pattern. It's on Ravelry, it's free, and it just links through to her Instagram. So all I did was, when I found it on her Instagram, I screenshotted it so that I can make it again anytime I like. It's almost looking a little bit baggy, that, but it should be exact because I used my quilting ruler to cut it out. Okay, let me just grab that other pouch that I made. So this one was made with a piece that is at least twice the size. I think it was about 24-inch square. So I had a bunch of scrappy log cabins, and I used them for both sides. So the outside is scrappy, the inside is scrappy. The whole point was to use up scraps. And all you do with this big square is you just fold it into an envelope, basically. These two seams get stitched here, which, as you can see, would not be practical to do on a machine, so you're really forced to do it by hand. But that's great because it looks good that way. And then you could just fold this down like this and do some sort of fastening like this, depending on what you want to put in it. But when I saw Kate at the last Homely House making something like this, she made hers so that you could hold this up, fold this down, and then wrap your cord or whatever around, tuck it in. So yeah, you could use pretty much any fastening. You could do a button and loop, you could do some sort of hook and eye. And yeah, it's a really nice way to make a little sewing roll or something. I haven't used this since I made it. It was just the joy of making it, really. But I'm sure one day I will figure out a use for it. Maybe if I go on holiday and I need something padded to protect something, then that would be perfect. And I used the butterfly buttons, the wooden buttons, to hold the layers together, almost like tying a quilt. I haven't thought about whether I'm going to do something like that on this project. But I think the next thing I'm going to do, if I have time, is I'm just going to pull out my buttons right now and see whether I want to do some sort of button tying with this, and also what I want for my main attachment right here. It's later in the evening. I have repinned my work from the messy side. I said earlier, I think that this was all going to be made by hand, but I think I told a little white lie, because I'm actually going to be machine sewing around this, not hand sewing this bit. But that's the only bit of machine sewing I'm doing on this. And I'm not going to put the camera down sideways so that you can see exactly what I'm doing, because it's just literally going around most of this, pivoting at the corners, back stitching at the beginning and end, and leaving a gap for turning. And actually leaving a gap for turning means I should probably put in a pin. Let's see, there's some stitching right on the edge there. Here. So I'm going to put a pin in like this, so that as I approach this head of this pin, which is the wrong way that it would from what it would normally be if I was sewing with pins in on the edge, then I'll be reminded not to sew it. Well, that wasn't quite perfect. You can see there's a little bit of anomaly there, but I'm not going to worry too much about that. I'm going to trim off some of the bulk at the corners. Now, it didn't look like I top stitched the last one I made, so I'm not going to top stitch this one, because it is going to be pretty bulky and I don't want it to look terrible. Do a little bit. Oh, I really left a small hole there. Whoopsie. Give a little finger press so that it's easier to tell where the line is afterwards. So by doing this, you end up with a nice, neat piece with no raw edges showing. Might have to give this a little bit of a haircut later, because it's still got some threads hanging off it. This would make a very, very lovely cushion cover, wouldn't it? I was in between working on it. I was just leaving it on a living room cushion, because I was putting the cushion on my lap and then resting the work on the cushion to bring it up more to eye height, so I wasn't bent over it, giving myself a pain in the neck. And I just thought, oh, I would really love this to be a cushion cover. That would be awesome. Okay, where are we? Here. Because I finger pressed the lining, I've got a nice crease right there. So that means that it's easier for me to figure out how much to fold this in. try and keep the line straight. The challenge sometimes with this sort of thing is making sure there's no bulge where it goes from the machine seam to the turn-in. I'm just going to ladder stitch the two edges together. It just means coming over to this side, taking a bite of a little piece of the fabric, and then going straight across. Okay, that's not going to be very visible, is it? Okay, let me try this a different way. All right, hopefully you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to do a ladder stitch, and I'm going to go from the back directly across to the front, take a little bite about, I don't know, a few millimeters long, and then go straight back, take a little bite out of the lining. Straight across. And I have to be careful not to get confused by my embroidery here, and make sure I catch the fabric. Funny, I spent so many years trying to avoid hand sewing, being the impatient sort that I am. And I always wanted to avoid having to hand finish anything, because I felt like it would slow me down. And now here I am doing slow stitching projects and really enjoying the hand sewing. The main thing I need to do actually is figure out which of these corners I like best for being my outside corner. Do I want this to be my main flap? It's pretty nice. Or this one. There's some cacti there, which are rather fun. Or this one with this leaf that I've picked out in back stitch. Or this one. I think I'm going to go for this corner as my main outside flap, because it's going to have some of these flowers on it, and it's got this nice bright pink piece with the leaf on. Yeah, I like them all really, but I think that's going to be the one. All right, that's decided. I don't think I need to press it. The edges have actually rolled out quite nicely. All right, time to fold and sew. So what I found last time was the best way to sew this is to start here and work towards the corner, because if you started here and worked your way that way, you might end up with something uneven over here, and that would be very, very annoying. I also made sure that when I was sewing, I was just going into the upper level. I was going not into the lining, but into the top layer of fabric, just above that seam. After a lot of battling with the thread, I finally got the thread coming out of that corner. Then I'm going to fold this one over. It's a little bit fiddly, let's face it. It's unavoidable. You can't really pin or clip it because you're just butting the edges up against each other. But it gets easier. Again, I'm doing a ladder stitch straight across the gap, trying to keep my stitches as close to each other as possible so we don't get any gaping. Take a bite out of one side, bite out of the other side. Might even be easier to hold it like this, mightn't it? Huh. I think it'll look all right, but I may go back and just tidy up where those corners come together later. Maybe. Gets a little fiddly once you get to the corner. Very satisfying when it snugs shut like that. That's the first seam done. And I am going to go back and tidy this up because I don't like how it looks. I just tightened up this join here because I didn't like it, how it looked. So that's the first seam done. It takes a while, but it's worth doing it so that it looks good. Now make sure I'm doing the seam in the right place for the next one. There we go. Now it won't get away from me. I turned off the camera for the second seam because it was just the same stuff twice. And also I like to be able to look really closely to make sure that I'm getting my stitches pulled tight. And then when I had finished this seam, I went back here and I pulled these three together, these three corners where they meet. I went around a couple of times going through the tips together so that they would stay together. What I need to do now is make a thing for wrapping around, because this is going to fold up and over and wrap around. And I'm just going to check that I'm still happy with these three cords being braided together to make a wrap. Or I could just use one of the colors. Yeah, braiding three together might be a little heavy for this, but I'm just going to check that. I am going to bring my sewing machine forward and I'm going to put this under the foot of the machine. And that will hold it down. Perfect. Right, you might not be able to see the first part of this, but you'll be able to see it in a minute. Just going to do it loosely. They're getting really tangled. Oh boy. Very tangled. Okay, so this is what it looks like, loosely plaited. I would prefer it tighter than that. So do I want that plaited? It picks up all the colours in the fabric, doesn't it? I feel like I'm wrestling with this thing. Alternatively, I could just do green. Oh, I do like that. I do like the green on its own. Excuse my ring hitting the table again, honestly. And then purple on its own would look like this. And then pink would look like this. think I might go with the green. Having said that, the buttons that I picked out to go on the front were mostly bright pink. So there's this massive one here, which actually goes really well with these pink circles because it's pretty much the same size. And then I've got a couple of smaller ones as possible candidates. And then I've got a really, really big one, which is, I think that's brown, pink, orange, and green, which is very fun. I'm definitely leaning to the green. I really love it against that. So I think I've decided. Now the challenge is, how do I attach this faux suede cord to the fabric? I think what I am going to do is I'll take it through the loop. Take it out to the side, across, and then through the loop again. I'm going to do that again. So from the middle, take a big stitch. It didn't go through all the layers before. Okay, it did that time. Like that. And then like that. So I've held hopefully you can see that. I've just held it down like so. I didn't really want to sew through the cord in case it damaged it. So now if I can get the shank of the button to go maybe vertically between those strands, aha, I'll need to get my thread coming up in the right place for that. Well, I hope you managed to see most of that. I won't know until I edit how well I was under the camera lens. I'm afraid I could have been going severely out of shot there, but as I say, I won't know until I edit. I will try do my best to show you the best of it. It'd be nice with a little extra pocket in it as well, but the challenge would be knowing where to put it. I suppose as long as you centered it bang in the middle of your square with the straight edge lined up with one of the corners, your favorite corner ideally, then it wouldn't be too hard. Okay, now for the final reveal. So that's what it looks like if it's not rolled. And then if I roll it, I would be folding it like that and continuing to roll it up like that, and then wrap it around a few times. Maybe that way as well. Oh, I like that. Try and center it so it looks nice. And then tuck it under. I saw a better arrangement for this wrapping and tucking thing once before. But let's just say I can tuck it like that for now. I can always trim that later if I feel it's too long. And ta-da! It is done. Phew! I really love making these. They are very pretty, even though sometimes I have my struggles with them. So there she is. all finished. What size did that finish up? Let's just check, because I started out with a 12.5 inch square, didn't I? And then I trimmed it to a 12.25 inch square. And then this little pouch, once it's rolled up, comes out to be 8 inches. 8 inches square, but when it's rolled up, it's 8 by 3 3/4. It's a good size for something like a little sewing kit or something like that, or putting a small slow stitch project into when you're on the go. Yeah, I'm really liking that big pink button on there, which echoes my pink circles, and then the pop of green. Some of my favorite colors in here. Thanks so much for watching today. I hope you enjoyed coming along for the ride. And I will see you again really soon, because I have lots of ideas for other things I want to make, and I will be, no doubt, be itching to tell you about them very soon. Thanks so much. Bye for now.